Hi everyone, very warm welcome in the line, and welcome to another Vienna meetup. Good to see you. I've been to a dozen, and I guess it's the first time I finally managed to speak it, so great to see you all. Talk number one for today, I tried to keep it a little bit controversial to attract people. Logstash goes TDD. Well, okay, what's that all about? Anyways, okay, what to expect today? Obviously, for the first hi, I'm Adam, VP of Engineering at Inline for 4.5 years. Happy to elaborate later on a little bit what we are and what we're doing and why actually doing data is important to us. But before we get started, and there's a couple of topics in the agenda for the next half an hour. But also to set the stage right, I'd love actually to hear from you. What brought you here? How much data do you do? How much data do you plan to do? We like a small round, so just go ahead. Who of you would consider a data engineer or something with data? One, two, okay. All right, so a couple of people. Who of you would consider a software engineer? All right, so those are 2/3. So I've been to a meetup recently, and I consider myself a software engineer, wholeheartedly. And then I was told, listen, actually every software engineer also is a data engineer. That makes sense. Like, what's software without data? So be it big data, small data, what have you. Actually, I firmly believe every single one of us, whatever the title, we all do data, we just don't know it maybe. Anyways, okay. So maybe then again, how many of you do test-driven development? All right, that's fair. That's not the anyone. So, couple of colleagues raised their hands. That's fair. Like, my relation to TDD is, I guess there will be a little slide afterwards. I love it. Like, algebraic paradigms, it's just people usually don't do it. But maybe we'll figure out why this actually would make sense also in the context of data and pipelines. Okay, then we'll take a little look at why this is actually of interest to any one of us. I'd like to give you some context about, well, who we are and why we care about data in the first place. There will be a demo time. Yeah, and then ideally, we can carve out any benefits to all of us. Okay, why Logstash? And I stole this actually directly from their homepage because I think it's pretty self-explanatory, right? First, it's free and open source. Amazing, I love it. I love the device. Thanks a ton. It's a server-side processing pipeline that ingests data, does something about it, logic, whatever you want to do with it, and then sends it to, well, whatever you want. Cool. Where can I take that from? 50 plus plugins. We personally utilize HTTP, PubSub, cloud storage, then some, but again, pretty much covering every of the needs. And equally sending out data then to, we use Elasticsearch and BigQuery, but there is a gazillion more of output plugins. And you might have noticed there's 1 and 3, so obviously the magic happens in between. Where we do the transformations, what we call filters, the filter plugins. And from there, again, you have the Swiss Army knife, mutate, in itself covering around 20-ish transformations. You can translate, you can open dictionaries, extract patterns, dates, JSONs, pretty much all one would need. If the standard Logstash plugins wouldn't do that, you still can use Ruby, like inline Ruby basically. It's not a Ruby code, so there's a little excursion here. I guess of all the languages that you have to touch, if you have touched them for 5 years, Ruby is the one. If you see it, you type it, it's a natural, it's wonderful. And if that is not sufficient, you still can write a custom plugin, which, by the way, we did for the first time 2 months ago. Again, it was a very smooth ride. Why is it a smooth ride? Because Logstash has also great developer experience. It's very well documented. It has verbosities, so when something goes wrong, the system tells you what's wrong, you know how to fix it. It has nice IDE support, which we'll see later on. And what I personally also like is declarative. Right? I'm just not writing yet another code, what to do or how to do it, but rather just I tried. It's not a DSL, I guess. It's a configuration language. Not sure about the exact lingo. It's conditionals and stuff. So easy to work with, covering all your needs. That's one aspect. The other aspect is why test driven development? And I skip you the answer. I actually only last week, Dave Farley, you might have heard of Dave Farley, great guy. Last week he published a video, why TDD still hasn't taken over the world. And I remember a talk of Ken Beck, the guy who kind of invented TDD. People still making a fuss about it. Actually, back then, he talked to like mainframe engineers for the 70s, 80s. It wasn't such a natural thing. Of course, you test it first before you roll out production. It still hasn't landed, so I guess we'll skip this part. It's not a TDD talk in itself. But maybe let's ease it a little bit. Why tests, and especially why test your pipelines? They do logic. And I guess any logic you have, maybe have some specifications and requirements. Maybe you want to have like a test harness or some safety net that you change the pipelines for one case, it will not break the other. Or if it does, visibly so. And I guess the gist here is the one bold word is fast feedback. Right? So you don't want to build something and then push a button and wait for hours for stuff to break. You want to try something out, you want to make a change, and make the change as easy as possible, and get feedback within, well, ideally seconds, I guess. I guess that's the important part, and there's obviously a bunch of books like tests, so let's keep with that. And regarding TDD itself, from a classical software engineering paradigm perspective, there was the old school learning how to do TDD, the ping pong and people, which is nice and fair. But what it's actually about, and I really like the quote we picked up recently, it's actually a conversation between people where a byproduct is code. However you do it, right? No need to overspecify. So I guess the gist, and that's also applicable in my opinion, and I'd like to motivate it in a minute, that when we buy those transformations, those data pipelines, we do stuff, and we want to see what it does, and actually also want to see if and how it breaks. All right. Why is this important for us in the first place? You might see we have a bunch of fires here and data and capture. So Underline is about 10 years old. And we are a data capturing company, per definition. I think our mission statement is what just taken together with digitizing the analog world with mobile data capturing software. All right. In reality, we have a plethora of data producers. Mobile, web, cloud, native, what have you, of all the versions, of all histories, of all the schematas, sending us data. I think right now I'm ingesting data from SDK version 2 up until 52. Okay? So when we started our, we call data lake project a year ago, we were confronted with a huge pile of data. No one could really work because like last year the field was named like that, and the year before it was like that, except it was a string, and then it was an object, you know what I mean, right? So our goal and what we achieved with Logstash, also with test driven, to write transformation pipelines where we can ingest 10 years of data over 7 different platforms, or what have you. In the end, have plethora of data producers, how we call them. Oh, by the way, timestamps are not different. However you export it, it's always a different format. Plus C, minus C, with microseconds, without microseconds, it's hell. If you have the proper pipelines and specifications, all nice and dandy. But beyond that, as I mentioned, I think that the biggest problem is to have the inconsistent schema of data producers decoupled from data consumers. We have people and systems working with the data, and I cannot tell my product managers that this field was called like this last year, but not like this that year, which is, So to have this consolidated. So how does this work? The producers send the data, the usual lands to PubSub, can also be from export or have it from BigQuery or from cloud storage, ideally in a normalized format. We're transforming those with Logstash filters, also pretty cool. It scales super nicely the way we build it. Like we're ingesting up to 10,000 plus events a second, and elastic hosting, the elastic deployment on Elastic Cloud. It's amazing. Auto-scaling, boom, and I guess there would have been a slide for later, but just to stay on track, on one word on cloud, it's not our infrastructure, it's not our product, and chances are it's none of yours. Our product is scanning capability and building knowledge out of the data that we gather, and we're super happy to have the infrastructure part covered. Yeah, and then we do like anomaly detection, dashboards, and obviously sending it to a bunch of consumers. And one important aspect I mentioned here is full data availability. So what happens if we ingest data that does not match the Elastic index pattern? I don't know how many of you are working with Elasticsearch or have worked with? Couple. Okay. The beauty of Elasticsearch is that it allows you dynamic mapping. So I don't have to predefine SQL columns. You can send any JSON you want. With the gist, with the hunch, that it has to be somewhat consistent. Like I cannot send a field with a scalar value. I can, then it's going to be stored back with scalar value. Next event, if it would be a nested object, then depending on the settings, would either the whole event be rejected or with a recent introduction, just the field. But in any case, you would have inconsistent data. So either some events missing, or the event here, but just the field missing that was inconsistent. And by the way, I would love to hear the feedback later on if anyone uses that. For now, we decided not to use the pattern, not the setting, because I prefer not to have the event than having an event with some missing fields. But I guess it's totally up to the use case. But by the end of the day, in near real time, I want to have all the data. Okay, that's the motivation here. So now the scary part. How did this actually start? Idea internally, and then part of the Socrates conference in Linz, unconference for what it's worth. We kind of built on top of that, so it's on GitHub for anyone available. Before I start coding, there was a couple of slides. How about the context? Any questions about the context, or how was your experience with data pipelines so far, for those who do it, who plan to do it? All right. So I'm switching to my IDE, and you will let me know if you can. You probably cannot. Fair enough. Let's see, that's also available for the colleagues. Like this. All right. Is the code screen visible in here? Yes. Is it also visible in the recording? Cool. Okay. So for those who are not as familiar yet with Logstash, that's a filter. All right. Nice configuration language, IDE support, as I mentioned. What does it do? From the event, it's JSON based, but no, it's, but anyways, from the event, it will take the field and rename the field venue to name. How about the tests? Let's see. It's prepared.
Fair enough. First, let the test run. It's always good to have an infrastructure test to see that actually the tests themselves are running. It's fantastic. And on top of that, I luckily have stuff in my Git log. All right. So what's happening here? I will get into the details in itself. But first, outside in, the input event sent from a data producer, what have you, sends an object that says venue, Socrates. You see, this is actually where we built this stuff, basically. I send it to my pipeline to be transformed, and I expect the event that gets back to look like this. And the difference here being that the field venue is called name. All right, let's see. It works. Lovely stuff. What else could we do? We do test-driven. Would we like, let's extend this one. Not sure if JSON automatically converts stuff. How about, what could we do with our events? Let's take some real-world example. What can we ensure? A date, fantastic. Timestamp, cool. So let's see, it's my 2023, today's something, December-ish 11th. Whoopsie. And I expect, should we still call it date? Perfect, yes. To be, what should it be? Something like a timestamp, I guess, right? I'm not sure, actually, 100% sure how this is. Well, we'll see. Probably it's gonna be something like this. And probably, well, all right, let's hit the test. Pardon? Good. Okay, so here it is. Actually, nothing happened. Well, it's still a string. Okay, cool. So let's go to our pipeline. It's not, personally, I like to have separate files for that, but should we hack it together? Yes, let's make it a YOLO. Filter, so it's a date filter. And probably the source is, I think it's source. If not, there's docs. All right, so there is the docs. And I'm sure there's a date filter, and the date filter will tell us that it's match. All right, so the match, it takes the field called date, and the format probably is Y, small or M, all the same. One of those, right? Yeah. Yes, you're right. All right, see if that works. Well, not fully there yet. Is it called date? Can we do something else than date? You know what? Let's put it somewhere else. Let's put it to target real date. Should be good enough. And actually, so it should look like. Does it? No, it does not. That's a pity. What does it say? Oh, we have actually more error messages. That's cool. And actually, there's also something also nice, right? If you use a proper testing framework, this one is based in JavaScript, but obviously you can do whichever you want. But about the same implementations, we'll get there in a second. Actually, we aren't that bad. Look at this. Actually, we forgot this little friend of ours. Because apparently that's the normalization of that. And that's wonderful. Why is it wonderful? Because if I tomorrow, and that's like a real world example, right? I'll have another, a source that will send us like date from another source. It will send me the date, not like this, it will send me the date like this. Obviously, I expect the same. Also to have the date, the real date parsed. It's gonna break. Of course, it's gonna break because we didn't specify the pattern, right? For now, we specified only this one, and now the source sends something else. So naturally, and that's a real example, actually, that's what we did, right? So what I saw, when running the pipelines, I didn't saw the good ones. What we actually saw is the bad ones. Can parse a date. So what you're going to do naturally, you fix it. You fix it by probably something like this, and then like this. Probably it's MMSS. However, by doing so, you would have broken the previous case. And I don't want to burn too much time on the proper date formatting, I guess. Could look up my real code, I guess, but that's not the trick here. The learning here is that by fixing pipelines to apply to some schema without having some form of test harness, of test safety net, you would easily break the other. And then you play ping pong. And for the worst case, if you don't get the feedback immediately, but actually you fix the date format for the new event type, for the schema v2, and you deploy it and you run it, and you have big data, like, I don't know, hundreds of millions, gazillions events. 2 days after, you realize, oh, now I'm missing the other 50%. I mean, it happened to us, so, been there. After a while, this gets tedious, and you start thinking, how can I ensure that doesn't happen? So I guess that's one application to do it, right? And again, the takeaway, whatever we changed here, document why stuff was there in the first place, such that when it breaks, it does so at least visibly. I have a second example at hand, but before I get a second example, you might wonder what's actually happening here. Again, this is all on GitHub, publicly available. The magic here that we utilize is, before running the test suite, we boot up a Docker image. In this case, it's based on, well, let's look it up actually. It's based on, well, unsurprisingly, the Logstash image on Docker. And we utilize the magic of Logstash that can automatically reload your configuration. All right, so we have this here on true. And the actual pipelines that I have here, like on the host system in my IDE for the test setup, they are only symlinked into the container. So if I take an, I assume you can see my screen here. Of course, yes. Thanks. So we have the Logstash. Oh, wrong. My first pipeline, knock doke. When I now change something here, like whatever, that just reloaded the pipeline. I don't have to restart it. There is even some more magic going on, namely taking a look at the, at the test setup, that after closing this one, if it's not on, if it's on CI, because we run the test also on CI, after the test suite, obviously I want to close the container because I don't want to have it dangling around in my CI system. But otherwise, locally, I can keep it dangling at the end of the day. Chances are you don't want to reboot it every time. If you've done so, what would happen? Restarting the tests. Nothing was here. I stopped the container. After all, it's not starting again. But then again, this takes, even if not much, still some time. And when we do implement changes, when we do the real coding, right, we want to have instant feedback within seconds, not minutes, not hours. So here's the gist. To sum it up, I guess what's noteworthy here, before starting the test setup, we boot containers, symlink the pipelines into the container, and then utilize Logstash ability to automatically reload the configuration. All right. There's a second example I have at hand. Luckily, I have it in my Git logs, so I will spare you watching me typing. I guess. I don't know. All right. So what have I done here? That's a good question. I made a new pipeline. I call it fruits. Here's my fruits back. So imagine you have, again, in the previous one, we saw you explicitly maybe make a differentiation here. Explicitly state your events, how they should look like. Okay, this can be a bit tedious. I mean, it's good enough in here, and we also use it a lot of that. Could be really tedious. Maybe what you can want to do on top of that, you have your, I call it fixtures. Not sure if that's the right word here. I don't know. These are my fruits. So when I want to have, I specify schema, right? And I say must have a color and can have a name. And then, well, unsurprisingly, you look over all your fixtures, transform them. Again, this is the source, the sender one, and ensure that the event sent after transformation does match your schema. Let's see, does it work? All right, that wasn't started, so let's give it a minute. For now, we only have a name. And I actually will require a color. So chances are this should fail. I hope it will fail. If you ever do tests, let them fail first. If they're always green, that's fishy. So let's have them red first. Okay, that's bad. okay, I think I know why. That's JavaScript is weird. Okay, well, if you wonder what happened when I run this, it tries to grab for the test cases, but by the time of the execution, there are no tests yet because this is some asynchronous magic. No tests were detected, so I actually have to run it like this. And yeah, JavaScript. I love it, but I still don't get it. Anyways, apple is red, and our chai tells us, well, that's the schema, and apparently the color is missing. So what we can do, let's go to the full pipeline. Let's make a new file, I guess. I personally like to have them like this, but it's totally opinionated. Let's give them some color. Sure, why not? Filter that does, I guess it's a translate. Let's have the source is the field name. And then there's something like a dictionary where we say roses are red. Oh, that's not test driven, but anyways. And apples are pardon? Green. Thanks. All right. And I guess I totally messed this one up. How does it look like? Oh Lord. Okay. Translate. It is. And translate. Actually, it's just like this. Okay. So it's actually a And there's a source. The dictionary is an object. Fair enough. All right. And actually, the target should be color. Let it run again. Oh, it's still red. That's unfortunate. Then again, the beauty is, as we're using a proper test framework with IDE integration, what have you, we can easily do debugging. We're not debugging Logstash, right? But at least we can debug the event. All right, here's the event. What does it have? The fruit. Oh, nothing happened, actually. So who could help me? Why this is still... Pardon? Oh, good catch, is it? Gladly we have a test set up. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, cool. Oh, it's apples. And you mentioned the apple is uppercase. Indeed. Good catch. Thank you. Okay. It was just reloading, and it's green. Lovely stuff. Okay. Any questions to that before I switch back to presentation mode, though, like of the PowerPoints and magic is happening? Okay, cool. Is the recording good? Awesome. So, what have we seen? It's good to have fixtures for new data that comes in to ensure it doesn't break the other stuff that we implemented the items for in the first place. Software engineers become data engineers. Now we writing the software that works on data also have to think, to whatever extent, about the structure and nature of the domain of the data you operate. Cool. I see cool. Some limitations, stuff I have not shown you deliberately. How this works under the hood is that we basically, in the test pipelines, have a HTTP listener, so we post the JSON into the pipeline, that's cool. And the way it's implemented to get data out is that we have a file output that basically takes the event and saves it into a local file that we can just pull out of the container. Two drawbacks here. A, if you want to inspect the metadata of events, which is visible standard out, for instance, Logstash, it's not in files. Fair enough. And obviously kind of hard to test the drops because a pipeline could say if, I don't know, some conditions occur, that the event is dropped for no further processing. Or if the event is dropped, nothing is written, and you don't get a result. However, if you think back 2 slides before the presentation, I mentioned full data availability. What we do, we don't drop events anyways, because by the end of the day, by the end of the hour, I want to ensure that the raw number, 103,375,512 of events exactly matches. If I drop the bad ones, I would always have a mismatch, not knowingly if the mismatch came from a deliberate drop or from a boo. So what we actually do, when we detect data that we don't want to have in like full verbosity, we tag it, and by the end of the pipeline, we just send it to maybe, I don't know, another index will tag you. Maybe we do whitelist or allow list on fields, so maybe I don't take them all. But in any case, that allows us to, well, have always full availability and actually never use drops in the first place. And yeah, to sum it up, keep your pipelines tested. Thank you. There's Q&A, you can do it here, or obviously over there we have foods and beverages, so you're all invited. Grab a drink. If there's something you want to see on the IE, please ask. Now or later.
If I multiple filters, like, is there some sort of precedence which filter can have ambiguities of the filter?
You can.
And how do we solve them?
So, to my understanding, luckily we have some experts in the house. In order of precedence, in occurrence, which is, it's like, great question. Generally, I assume, like, imagine you want to have something else, like we have a, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. Trying, nope, and again, yeah. All right, so for now we translated the name to a color, and now we want to make the color actually uppercase, which I guess will be mutate because it's always mutate, and then it's, I don't know, actually, okay, that was maybe too fast. Oh, indeed, it's actually called uppercase. Well, here it is, right? And I want to uppercase the, well, the color. Sorry, test driven, my bad. No one said anything. So that's the fixtures. And then let's say, okay, I want to have name is it a no color? Color is uppercase, which is a function which does probably stuff, and it has to be async. So our event, well, let's call it fruit, well, let's call it input, is like we had the name being Apple. And then, well, copying from the other one, actually. I should know by now, but here we are. So, okey-doke, that's the input. And then we expect the event to deep contain match equal. What is it? I guess equal, whatever. And then we set the color. Should be uppercase. So it should be actually, was green? Cool. Let it run, it's gonna fail. Because, well, it doesn't match. It's a lowercase. So first thing, we could put it above. Should be wrong, but you know. Let's see, let's pick it from here. We had it before. Yep, history is a friend. But obviously this will not work. Well, I see, obviously. In order of appearance within a file. Well, let's try. Yeah, there isn't even a color, or I don't know. There is, but applied only afterwards. Cool. And now, put it there. Yeah, well, not bad. Oh, actually, wait a second. Really, how come? The actual color is green. Yeah, I said deep equal and maybe shouldn't do deep. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So while I fix my own testing setup. Perfect. Contains. Perfect. That's that. There is one thing to consider. I think it's as one could within a given mutation have several mutations like uppercase, but then also rename color to, I guess, who's British here? American? Well, the other way around. I'm not sure what's going to happen, to be entirely fair. However, long story short, the doc says it, and usually it's an order of appearance. Within the mutate, apparently, when renaming multiple fields, it's in a docs. Processing order, here it is. But that only applies within mutation, and mutation is a special beast because it can do a lot of stuff. Usually it's an order of appearance. But then again, make a test, ensure it works. And that's that. The other aspect to mention is it's the files are read, I guess, by globbing and therefore in order of appearance, which is why we have this hacky pattern here. I mean, it's good for us, I guess, because then in our setup we can reutilize several files. Long story short, the files are in lexicographical order, and then within the file, top down, I guess. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. Oh.
It does remind me a lot of test containers, like in the general concept of like having that integration test layer.
To be fair, I never worked with test containers in itself, but in the end it is, right? It totally is.
Yeah.
I don't think we have a dedicated Docker file here. No, in this standardized, simplified pattern, we work directly off the Logstash image. In the real world, we have our custom plugins. So when we Dockerize Logstash, we build the plugins first and stuff, and therefore our Docker setup has one level of complexity above that we don't just pull the image, but actually build our own. And then it's definitely one we build only for testing, yes. And then the beauty is like, if I switch Logstash versions, then, just have to go here, actually there, whatever, switch it to, we have, I think, 11.2 out now. No, one is the new one.
No, two should be out.
That's good, wonderful, cool. So let's see if this still works with, well, any of that works. Obviously runs from console as well.
Then you need to restart.
Yeah, it's not pulling 8.11.2. And I'm not sure what happened here. Takes a while. We have Wi-Fi. So long story short, by end of the minute, Now I just pulled 8.11.2 and just rest out there, which is fine, right? So on a bumped version, you can merge request. See it's not failing, and if it's not failing, assuming you have a nice test coverage. There's always a false sense of security, I guess, but definitely having something with nothing. And especially with like major version upgrades, it also makes sense to have some pipelines covered before production. Even if the best errors even happen in production, it's a given. That does not free us from the, I guess, responsibility of at least do this in our power to avoid such installations, Right. Enough. Hold. Let's start this one. Yeah, there will be no surprises here. I don't know this. So again, from here you can do. It's just a general idea. Again, the repo is very, very lightweight. It's more like a motivation to do such stuff in the first place.